This podcast is brought to you by the Islamic Center and NYU. For more information, visit our website at www.icnyu.org.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him, we praise Him, we glorify Him. We beseech Him to send His choicest salutations upon His most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and upon all those who choose to tread in His path until the last day. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed to be together on this Mubarak day of Jummah. May Allah make us from amongst those who reap from its unique benefits. May He make us from amongst those who see every opening that He grants to us on this blessed day of Jummah, as well as those who seize the opportunity of taking advantage of those openings as a means of benefit for us in this world and in this next. In so much of our tradition, there's an emphasis of knowing why it is that you do the things that you do. One of the foundational narrations of the prophetic tradition that begins most texts of hadith, let alone is one that is taught to us, is a hadith that is on intentions. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And the idea is that you have an intention that goes along with an action, and that both being sound become a necessity in order for that act to be something that is accepted by Allah. And where we struggle at times, especially in the prism of modernity, where a very gross moral relativism rooted in an egocentricity and amplified by supremacy tells us that we become the arbitrators of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is not good, what I think or I feel, or what somebody else who comes from a place of privilege, might have wealth, might have affluence, might be of a certain skin complexion, race, or ethnicity. What they determine goodness to be becomes now the categorical definition for me that affirms that my act is right and my motivation behind it is also correct. In our hadith literature, in the book that Allah Azza wa Jal has sent to us for our benefit, that Quran, this notion gets obliterated, that egocentricity becomes the determining factor of what is okay to do. And it becomes confusion. It becomes something that has complexity to it. As I try to navigate here and there, hoping to just be from amongst those who do what is of benefit, and to have ikhlas within our motivation, sincerity, a good intention, that becomes a pursuit of ours. May Allah make us from the mukhlisin. Words like this have a lot of ambiguity to them. To be sincere, what does it mean? To be in a space where your intention is right, what does that look like? A principle that can help any one of us govern our movement forward is rooted in the idea that we can understand better what something is by knowing what it is not. So I can know what is good by affirming what is not good. I can know what is righteous by knowing what is not righteous. And I start to build definitions that now create for me parameters as I traverse this worldly realm of existence in pursuit of a greater world that comes ahead. May Allah make us all people of Jannah. That now does not make my whims or my desires or what others believe might be acceptable, but a God that believes in me more than I believe in myself. A God who has given to me an understanding and access to a religion that is for my benefit, not his gain, azza wa jal. Rooting that sense of what is good through what he tells us and what his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam embodies as a lived example of that text. And so if we were to try to understand what sincerity is, and we were to look within the Quran, it poses to us a lot of questions. لِمَا تَقُولُ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why do you say that which you do not do? أَتَأْمَرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ. That you command people to good, to birr, to righteousness, but you forgot yourself. And it speaks of a specific category of individual. May Allah protect us from being amongst them, that are called the munafiqeen. Those who have an outward engagement and profession, but inwardly, it's just not there. Sincerity we can put in a spectrum, and we can say that nifaq, hypocrisy, comes now at the other end of the spectrum. Maybe not the polar end extreme, but it's still somewhere on the other side. And you got to think about this, because we live in a world that becomes shocked. People become in awe when someone is virtuous or honest or a person of integrity. But when someone is deceitful, when someone engages now in something that is corrupt, it's not that we're desensitized, there's just no shock to it. To embrace this idea that I want to be from amongst those who have sincerity, and I want to now introspect, not be self-deprecating, which is a tool that shaitan utilizes to own you and to have victory over you. Our default doesn't have to be that we are bad. We can say that we are good and embrace the beautiful nature that Allah built us upon. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. But even a good person can always be better. The hadith gives us insight. The Quran gives us insight. And if I want to now embrace goodness inwardly and to know that those are things that my spirit, my soul, my heart, my body is giving me evidence of, we can look to what the Prophet ﷺ tells us and to say, well, if ikhlas is the goal, to be from the mukhlisin, and nifaq is not what sincerity is, then I can see and get closer to this idea of sincerity by removing characteristics of nifaq from me. In a foundational hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, ayatul munafiq thalath, that the signs of the munafiq, the hypocrite, are three. The one who outwardly professes faith but inwardly detests it. The one that does not have sincerity. إِذَا حَدَثَ كَذِبْ, that when they speak, they lie. وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفْ, and when they make a promise, they break it. وَإِذَا تُؤْمِنُ خَانْ, and when they're trusted, they betray that trust. May Allah protect us from ever embodying these characteristics. When you look at hadith like this, they're meant to be introspective, not what you apply to somebody else. You don't walk down the street and say, that's a munafiq, that's a munafiq. Allah protect us from that kind of judgmentalness. To understand also fundamentally, the adoption or presence of any of these characteristics does not render one to be categorically a munafiq, but it means you have a sign of nifaq on you. And for the purposes of this conversation, that's not something that goes hand in hand with sincerity. And so to deepen in the sense of being from the mukhlisin, you start to stand up against yourself and say that I don't want any of these signs on me. إِذَا حَدَثَ كَذَبْ, he starts with that when they speak, they lie. To be kadhab is to be a liar in our tradition. And to be honest and a person of integrity is the fundamental entry point to religion itself. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes through a trajectory where he is first known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy one, before he is known as Nabi. And then when he is Nabi, he is the person who is given these glad tidings of wahi. He becomes Rasul, a messenger that now spreads that book, that new and last testament for entire creation. The process continues and he goes through an experience of tajreed, detachment from the world. As his friends and family, who are his closest of kin, start to turn against him. And nobility now does not afford to him what it did before. Sleeping on straw mats, not having so much food to eat. It's a process, but it starts with honesty, truthfulness. Ours is a tradition that teaches us that in order to really see truth, you have to speak truth. And if you're lying, you're not speaking truth. There's two words that you want to build a relationship with. The word kadhib is different from the word kadhab. A kadhib is somebody who they speak when they've only heard one side of the story. You get information and you're not understanding. Well, what's the other element that comes to this? And somebody comes and speaks to you and says that here's what I've seen. And that suffices. You don't listen to the other person involved. The kadhib is not the one who is saying something that is necessarily false, but they haven't heard the entire picture. And in the prism of modernity, technology allows for us to now be privy to narratives and stories that we might not have ever heard prior to the advent of vehicles like social media and other apparatus that bombard us with information in abundance. And a constant flow of just pushing and pushing and pushing. It becomes problematic. The verification of what it is that we share is a necessity. The kadhab, they just straight up lie. You dig deep and you introspect. إِذَا حَدَثَ كَذِب. The munafiq's sign is that when they speak, they're not speaking truth, they're speaking falsehood. May Allah protect us from it. If you were to think in a given day and just write down every time you said something that was not true. The Quranic verse that says, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا, that say the word that is sadid. In Arabic, when an archer launches their arrow and it hits the bullseye, that is sadid. The word that is sadid is a word that is not just spoken correctly, but the timing of it also makes sense. You just don't throw words at people, not caring whether they're going to stick or not. But when you speak well and you speak true and you speak in the moments that make sense. So if your emotions cause you to speak unjustly against someone, and you chose to speak at that time when it was not you in control, but the emotions were in control, it's still you speaking at the end of the day. And your tongue is going to say what it spoke, and the ears that heard those words are going to say what it is that you put into them. قُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. Speak well or be silent. The hadith says, مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. If you don't know if what you're saying is correct, don't say it. And don't lie. And over the silliest things. I had a group of students who were in different leadership positions at our Islamic Center at NYU. And part of our engagement of them in their leadership development some years ago was that they would go through exercises that had to also deal with their personal development, their spiritual development. And all I said to them was that your key ingredient to effective leadership is telling the truth. I said, so just pay attention to how much you lie and what you lie about. in the coming week. And those who did it with vulnerability and hopes of understanding. And that's what our God wants. He wants us to struggle. Mujahada is about inward struggle. When you pick the easier of options, that's about things that exist externally, but inwardly, it's supposed to be hard. And the admission of the fact that this is something that all of us statistically do, but over the silliest of things. Why do you pretend sometimes that somebody doesn't see you when they're giving you salam from across the street? Why do you pretend sometimes and make up things over the things that you end up telling lies about? Ayatul Munafiq Thalath, and the first one, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا حَدِثَ كَذِب, that when he speaks, he lies. May Allah protect us from it. Just spend some time in introspection and think about what it is that it being said. And again, with wisdom and compassion. Because we have a hadith where an old woman comes and gives grapes to the Messenger ﷺ and his companions. And the Prophet ﷺ takes all of the grapes and eats them. And the companions, they just don't get what's going on. Because the nature of Muhammad ﷺ is to give to others first before taking for himself. And when she leaves, they say, "Why did you eat all the grapes?" And he said, "The grapes were sour. And I ate them so that we avoided you potentially claiming that they were not good or did not taste well and hurting this woman's feelings." And so there's a balance. You don't just go and be abrupt and arrogant and tear people down. But recognizing that much of what it is that we share that is within this realm of falsehood tends to be on little things that we don't necessarily need to be doing that. And in the prism that we're understanding this, it's about, I want to get closer to sincerity. I want to be doing it for what's right. There's not ever a right reason to do what's wrong. And honesty and integrity become the foundation of our religion. This hadith that I'm sharing with you is premised on this context. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that these are signs of a Muslim who is a munafiq, even if they're praying and fasting. And as you develop the ritual and the externals, there's a need to develop the internals as well. The second point, he says, وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ, that when they make a promise, they break it. The application of this now is not just in relation to anybody who is of your peer group. You got elderly people in your life who rely on you. You got to speak with truth to them and honesty with them. You got kids with you and you say to them that if you do X, I will give you Y, then you better give them Y when you promise them through X. It doesn't make it okay to break it if it's somebody who is younger than you or older than you or not as powerful as you or has no accountability. If anything, it's that much more important to do it the way that you said you would do it. You don't show up for people, it starts to leave them hanging, especially those that are reliant upon you. إِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ, you make a promise and you maintain it. These are big things within our religion. The maintenance of honor and dignity in these types of things. So if you are going to make that commitment to somebody, ensure that you are making it from your heart and do your best to make sure that it is fulfilled. You don't want to break it, nor do you want to be known as the person who can't be relied upon. And it goes into the third, وَإِذَا تُؤْمِنُوا خَانَ, that when they are entrusted, they break that trust. if I become the person who is known for not being reliable, I become the person who could care less what it is where I leave people hanging. I become the person who says that I'm going to just do what it is that I need to do for me and not for anybody else. That's not the way of this deen and its inward state that it calls one to. And in the pursuit of sincerity, ikhlas, I don't want to be the person who says do something but does something different. I don't want to be the person who goes and tells everybody else this is what you got to do but doesn't come back to myself. I want to do it for the right reasons. I want to do it with a sense of goodness. In order to get to that place, you got to cut out the rest of this stuff. Ayatul Munafiq thalath. إذا حدث كذب وإذا وعد أخلف وَإِذَا تُؤْمِنُ خَانٍ. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says that there are 4 signs of something that makes one a pure hypocrite. And he is in a place now where he qualifies and he says, whoever has them has a characteristic of nifaq until he abandons it. Before we talk about those 4, this is a critical part to understand. Until he abandons it means that you and I have to make a conscious exertion, that it is within us that we choose our choices. And if we are actively choosing to embody these characteristics, then we have to actively seek to abandon them and not want them to be within us anymore. Where is there honor in being elevated by a society that tells you to not embrace dignity and honor? Ours is a tradition that is based on ethics, politics, the corporate sector, private sector. So much of the world around us is based on the compromise of ethics. And in order to engage in the abandonment of it, the detachment of it, recognizing who it is the person that I want to be. Do I want to be the honest and trustworthy one, or do I want to be the one who's just elevating and pushing myself forward? And so in this particular hadith, he says 4 signs that when he speaks, he lies. When he makes a covenant, he is treacherous. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he argues, he is wicked. He is from those that have wickedness to them. May Allah protect us from it. And adds in now another element. Argumentation that is not done in a prism of righteousness. The narrations and the verses, they continue. And they give us a lot of different insight. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says that there will be successors after 60 years who waste the prayer and they follow their own desires. And so they will soon meet an evil ending. And then there will be successors who recite the Quran, but it doesn't go beyond their throats. And he ends by saying that there are 3 who recite the Quran: a believer, a hypocrite, and an evildoer. You can read the book and still have an inside that's not necessarily coinciding with it. And that first hadith we looked at said even people who fast and pray, you can do those rituals, but you're still going to get out of it what it is that you're putting into it. Abu Khayr rahimahullah, he says that your hearts, they're containers, they're vessels. And a heart that is filled with real iman has signs of compassion for all people, all Muslims, a concern for their concerns, and is cooperative in their welfare. But a heart that is filled with nifaq, with hypocrisy, has signs of malice and rancor and dishonesty and envy. May Allah protect us from these things. Can you celebrate somebody's successes? Can you feel good when somebody else is feeling good? Do you have within you malintent that turns you into a monster when it's now time to be in control of your lower self and your ego, your base desire? The presence of these things become an impact and an impediment. They can cause a lot of pain. Sometimes the hurt that's within us wasn't put in us by us, but the hearts that we have are still ours alone, and how we care for them and nurture them and cultivate a relationship with them. If you tend to see the flaws in others, but are not willing to see your own flaws, the hadith that says that one of you sees the speck in his brother's eye while he forgets the log in his own eye, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that you're trying to find everybody else where it is that they're lacking and not paying attention to what it is that you have going on. And the challenge there stems from not being comfortable with only where there's room for improvement. But one who likely cannot deal with their non-strengths is also one who does not embrace fully their strengths and their capacity and ability to do. So with confidence and gratitude towards God, you say, here's everything that he endowed me with, Azza wa Jal. And here's areas that I can have improvement in. But if you're only seeing what's lacking in others and what's weak there, then that's a root of this nifaq, a kibr, that we seek protection from Allah from that kind of behavior. The prayer of the hypocrites, the Prophet ﷺ describes that he sits watching the sun decline until it is between the two horns of Satan. Then he quickly pecks the ground 4 times while he only remembers Allah for a few moments. These are people, may Allah protect us from ever being amongst them, but they're still praying. And their prayer, it even indicates that there's some aspect of remembrance of the divine. But what keeps me from getting up? The Sheikh from Turkey, he wrote a book where so many of us have difficulty waking up for the Fajr prayer. May Allah make it easy for us. And his text wasn't focused on the difficulty in waking up for Fajr. His text was focused on the difficulty that people have getting up for Dhuhr and Asr. That when they're sitting at their office desk, they're sitting at their workplace, they're sitting in a classroom, every reason as to why they won't get up. How many times do you get home at night and you just keep delaying and delaying and delaying and pushing and pushing and pushing? I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to get off my feet. I got to take care of this or this and this. And then the time for Maghrib becomes just seconds. The time for Isha is just creeping upon Fajr. But your soul, your spirit, your heart, it's telling us something in those moments. And here the Prophet ﷺ, he's describing it as the salah of those who are from the munafiqeen. May Allah protect us from it. This is different from the person who otherwise can't do anything. The brothers and sisters who all they can do is join us in the last rak'ah of the jummah prayer because they otherwise can't leave their workplace. They can't leave their street carts. They can't leave their taxi cab or other things. But for many of us, it's a voluntary act that the nafs is overpowering now, saying that just put it off till later, and then when you do it, you pray like the rooster that the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us to be in avoidance of. He tells us in the hadith that the one who is a scholar, who teaches people goodness but forgets himself, is that of a lamp. Their likeness is that of a lamp, giving people light while it burns itself. You got to take care of you. Growth is not just in worldly success. On a day when we stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal with no possessions, with nothing of ranks and titles and credentials, nothing, not even clothes to wear. It's just going to be us with our actions and our deeds. And we don't get to speak, but the limbs will speak. The eyes will speak what we saw. The tongues will say, this is what I shared with others. This is how I spoke. And so many people's hearts will also speak about what kind of feelings we put into them. So you grow yourself. You take time to understand that your heart is the most important part of you. And not let it be something that you pass by. The starting point is reflection, contemplation, not self-deprecation. You stand up to who you are today so you can be the best version of yourself tomorrow. If this is a deen that is not transforming your character, then you are not practicing this religion in the way that it's meant to be. If you are in a place where you assess today, I'm turning 39 years old this year, and I look at myself as an evidence of myself. How many jummah prayers can I say that I have prayed in my life? And is my character indicative of that many years of prayers and transformation of it? The regular fast that I observe in the course of my days, does my body indicate that my heart is actually being molded by these? Maybe what's getting in the way of the ritual and the practice, or my ability to increase it, is that when I speak, I don't tell the truth. When I tell, I only tell half-truths, not the complete story. When I'm entrusted, I am not trustworthy. And it gets in the way of my progression. There's nothing more important than your heart. And may Allah grant us all hearts that are awake and alive. When you move forward, the goal is not to just get ahead in a worldly sense, not wondering what it is that you are compromising on to get to those places. Every time a lie is told, not to put aside the ones that you are lying to and betraying trust, but you're not doing right by your inside. To get to a place where the taste of what it is that we experience is not a feeling we're chasing after that we had one time when we prayed in the nights of Ramadan, but contentment, balance, that recognizes that this world is going to do things that make me feel sad and make me feel grief and make me feel anxiety. That people, they're going to be hurtful. May Allah protect us from it. But a heart that is attached to an individual that is from the mukhlisin, it's much easier for that heart to experience than real rida, real contentment. These other things are going to get in the way. So understand what something is by knowing what it's not. And goodness is never breaking promises, breaking oaths, telling lies, putting yourself first, being unfair in your argumentation. And you look to your spiritual signs and say, how am I engaging in these practices? What is the ethics that I have with those that are around me? Do I honor not just those who hold something over me, but Allah bless me with a child? Do I honor that child by not telling them lies and breaking promises? Do I honor the elderly, the sick, the individuals around me, and holding true to the rights that they have over me? And once the goodness starts rolling, it just keeps growing and keeps growing and keeps growing. To get these other things out of the way in order to ensure that the embrace of what is good is rooted now with an understanding of the relation of the inward to the outward. Inshallah ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal will make us all from amongst the mukhlisin. I pray that you all are doing well and keeping safe. And I hope, inshallah ta'ala, that Your loved ones are also healthy. I would ask that with mindfulness, you still approach the realities of the pandemic that surrounds us on a global level and not forget the lessons that we have heard and learned, that we are all connected to everyone else. And so even if in your neighborhood, it's not what it was a year ago, there's still people in different parts of the world who are going through great hardship. May Allah make it easy for them. Inshallah, this community will continue to strive to be a source of hope and healing for people at this time. We got to all do our part. And for your own sake, but most importantly for the sake of others, start to cut out these things that impact the heart, so that when you are making dua, you're making it with a heart that is not coated in a darkness of lies. That when you are standing in prayer, you are able to pray for your sisters and brothers with full attentiveness, because your inside is now not drawn towards laxness and laziness because you've been breaking promises. And then we can become a means of real benefit for Allah's creation. That's what Muslims are supposed to do. So I pray, inshallah ta'ala, that Allah blesses you and your loved ones and all of us on this Mubarak day of Jummah and makes us from the best of His righteous servants. And if any of you all are in need of anything, please don't hesitate in reaching out. It would be our honor to still serve in whatever capacity that we can. But if this is the only time that we are meant to be together, I pray, inshallah ta'ala, that Allah Azza wa Jal gathers us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. You can all join me in a short dua as we conclude our online reflection for today, inshallah. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil awwaleen wa fil akhirin. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here in our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope. Hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty. Hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance. For indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. Make us, Ya Rabbi, those who speak good and only good and otherwise remain silent. Those who speak with wisdom and foresight and never in response to any of our anger or pain or jealousies or envies. Remove from our hearts, Ya Rabbi, anything that holds us back from drawing closer to you and being who it is that you know that we can be. But fill us with courage. Fill us with an audacious boldness. Make us from amongst those who dare to ask of you, to make us those who only do that which is good. Forgive us, Ya Allah, when we speak half-truths or lies. Forgive us, Ya Rabbi, for any moment where we had opportunity to honor a promise and we broke that promise. Forgive us, Ya Allah, for every trust that we have betrayed, for any time in our argumentation that we have been iniquitous and unfair from amongst those who are wicked. Never let us, Ya Rabbi, bear any signs of hypocrisy, but make us in our aspirations to only be from the mukhlisin, those who have deep sincerity. Make us those who speak words of real beauty, Ya Allah. Those who, when we speak, hearts are awakened and invigorated. Make us those who speak words of healing, never hurt. Make us those who seek forgiveness for any hurt that we have caused. For any who are facing distress or duress in the world at this time, Ya Allah, we ask that you grant them ease and relief and make us a means of benefit for them. Help us to always be the reason that people have hope in this world and never the reason that people might dread it. And for any who have lied to us, broken promises that they made with us, betrayed trusts that they had enacted with us, help us to overcome and forgive, Ya Allah, so that we don't carry any toxicity or pain within us any longer. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah feekum. May Allah bless you and your loved ones always. I hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. I miss you all very much and look forward to the days that we can, inshallah ta'ala, be praying jummah together again, side by side. Keep me in your du'as. You and your loved ones are in mine. May Allah give you only the best in this world and the best in the next. Wallahu ta'ala alim wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
If you would like to listen to more, please donate to www.icnyu.org/donate. For more of our virtual programs, go to www.icnyu.org/classes. If you have any questions, email us at info@icnyu.org.